My name's Adrian Crockett, and this is my co-founder, Jamie Ballingal. And we're actually going to introduce you to something called Pellucid tonight. And we're going to talk specifically about how Pellucid fixes pitch books. Now, because I've done a little query of the audience, and not many people have probably been that exposed to pitch books, what do we think a pitch book is, if I use that phrase? Any ideas?
The deck used to sell products.
Yep, one of these. So why are these important? Well, if we actually think about financial institutions, we don't build bridges, we sell ideas. And you can't slide an idea across the table. So what you do instead is you go into a meeting and you slide one of these across the table and you say, this is what I'm talking about. It's a physical representation of the idea. Put a different way, it's what we do to convince our clients to do what we want. It's how we get them to do something. Now, each year, each major investment bank alone is going to spend more than $500 million producing pitch books. So it's a pretty big problem. Now, we're going to introduce a platform today called Pellucid, and then talk about our first toolkit, which is for investment banking markets. Now, over the last 2 years, we've been working with a lot of investment bankers, and Jamie and myself are recovering investment bankers also. And we've spoken to about 1,500 bankers, audited over 2,000 pitch books. A couple of things that we've learned. Average pitch book is around about 42 pages. And when I drop that on the table, it makes a thud. But that's not actually the scary bit. The scary bit is actually thinking about what went into that process. So when we look at the life cycle of a pitch book, it's not just the 42 pages. To get to those 42 pages, there's a total of 130 pages that we use during that ideation process. To get to the 42 pages, I created 130 pages. Now, expensive resources. We all know investment bankers get paid a little bit. So what that means at the end of the day is each pitch book costs on average for one investment bank $40,000. Put a different way, I'm holding a lot of Benjamins in my hand, right? That's expensive. When we went through this process, we found out that about 40% of the overall process is actually standardized materials. So charts, tables, things that when you actually talk to an engineer or a designer, they go, why isn't this done by a computer? So we're going to make it done by a computer. So the first 40%, what is the first 40% that should be automated? So this is an example of a typical investment banking page. Investment bankers in the audience, now nod. Very good. Okay, so we went through and we did case studies at a series of different investment banks. And because we know a lot of people across the street, it was a very, very specific example. We told the senior banker to request this as a fire drill for their junior bankers when they were getting on a plane from New York to Minneapolis. 6:30 flight, very, very specific. As we said, we know a couple of people across the street. What we then asked the junior bankers when they got the request for that page was actually to time the amount in each application that they were in. So, but also how many applications. So the vast majority of bulge bracket banks, also middle market firms, a junior banker will use more than 8 different applications to pull that one page together. Now, what does that tell you? It tells you that none of those applications were designed for this purpose. Furthermore, if you actually look at that page, it took junior bankers recognizing that these are all kids who come from Ivy League schools. These are smart kids. It took them nearly 2 hours. That's expensive. It has a direct cost associated with it. There's also a different question of cost, which is the senior banker's perspective. Now, the senior banker, he's just got a request in or has an emergency. He needs this now to service his clients. 6 hours in that particular instance for that one page. Really not satisfactory in this day and age. So just to wrap up with some of the things that we've learnt when we went through and looked at all those different pitch books, talked to all those different bankers, a couple of things that people would like. The junior bankers, we all read the press, we know the first thing that they would like is a couple more hours Z's. The recent announcement today about the previous UK case. right? That comes to mind. A couple of extra hours of Z's would possibly have helped there. Furthermore, they actually want to think. Now, if they're actually doing work that should be done by a computer, are they really thinking? Are they satisfied? Not particularly. And this is why we actually have a huge junior banker recruitment and retention problem across the street. Now, the senior bankers, sort of interesting because a lot of software is focused on the people who are perceived to be doing the work. And they try and solve it for the junior banker. But the senior banker is doing a lot of work also. What would they like? They would like velocity. What do I mean by velocity? They would like to go out and talk to more clients. More client contact points, more revenue. Pretty easy equation. However, they're always out at clients. When I was a senior banker, I was out on the road about 4 to 4.5 days a week. So mobility is critical here. I need to have a mobile environment. The final one is that it's actually done right. And this is very, very specific to a couple of fields where you have finicky senior people, management consulting, investment banking. The senior people have their own perception of what done right is. The machine needs to take that into account. So if John is a senior banker on an account, it needs to be the John way. They also need timely collaboration. So moving from an environment where software is a single person software to something that is actually team-based. Now management, what do management always want? They want lower costs. They want scalability. We all know that investment banking overreacts in good times and overreacts in bad times. That causes massive fluctuations in headcounts. Let's get rid of that. Let's solve a portion of that with software. And finally, they actually want that retention issue taken away. So that's some of the things that we've learned. With that, Jamie's actually going to jump into a presentation or a demo of what the software can do.
So this is Pellucid, and Pellucid is available here on a web browser. I think we're running Chrome here. Also available on IE8 and up, because that's what the banks are running at the moment. Also importantly, available on the iPad, and that's to address Adrian's point about it's available to the banker on the road. The senior bankers typically travel with an iPad, and at the moment that iPad is effectively a read-only device. The process at the moment, if they want to edit a pitch book or if they want to make comments on a pitch book, is the junior banker owns the pitch book. They have all the Excel files, all the PowerPoint files. They download data from FactSet, Capital IQ. They put it into Excel. They make some charts in Excel. They maybe use some kind of branding add-in to hopefully get the colors right and the fonts right. They copy and paste that into PowerPoint. Then they take that PowerPoint and they convert it to a PDF, and then they email that PDF to the senior investment banker, who opens that PDF on their iPad, probably with some hideous security breach taking it outside of the firewall. And best case scenario, they use something like iAnnotate to mark up that PDF and say, no, I don't want this comment, this bullet point to say this. I want it to say something different, or resize this chart, or take this comparable company out of this chart, or something like that. The most enlightened investment bankers are using iAnnotate. Often they're just typing emails on their BlackBerry. Some of them are still having these things sent to their hotel room, to the fax machine in their hotel, and getting a physical copy and writing on it. So this is available on the banker's iPad. So let's suppose that I'm a senior banker and I'm interested in Chevron. I can jump straight in here to the library. What's in the library? Well, I'm immediately presented with just a bunch of charts in different sections here. Just a bunch of charts. 3 different facts I want you to know about these charts. The first is they're obviously based on latest market data. The second thing is the junior investment banker has had a chance to look at the definitions and look at the data, scrub those numbers up. So that means 2 things for John, who has become our example senior banker here. The first thing is that John knows that that definition of EBITDA margin is his definition of EBITDA margin. Different senior bankers legitimately disagree on what EBITDA is. Different bankers have different definitions, so that's the right definition. Also importantly, some junior banker in John's team has been through and checked all this data, or at least the key data items that John wants them to check. So if there's any errors in this data, John can pick up the phone and yell at them and say, you've messed up this data. So this data has been scrubbed. It's that same standard of of quality that John's already used to. And the final thing about these charts is they're all already in the right branding standards. So that's the right color, that right shade of dark blue there, that's the right font in all the charts. What does that mean? Well, that means that these charts are all ready to go. So I can just pick up a chart and drag it down into my drawer at the bottom here. Let me grab the return on assets chart as well. I already had a couple of items in that drawer there. So this is my content drawer, and what Pellucid is embodying is what we call a review, select, tweak, and tell model. You review a bunch of charts here. You select the charts that you think are interesting. That's what I'm doing by dragging them into the drawer at the bottom. You tweak those charts, and then you use them to tell a story. Okay, so I've reviewed some charts, and I've selected some charts. Let me go in here to the deck section. So here I've already got a partially completed pitch book. And let me just finish that pitch book off. So let me grab that EBITDA margin chart and just drop it in here as a new slide. Okay, so that's pretty good. Let me start putting some narrative around that. So I've obviously got text editing capabilities here. So already this is also available on the iPad. So the senior banker can start to make edits directly. They can make markups if they want. They can say, put a little note saying, please change this. But isn't it actually easier just to make the change themselves? So I can start putting some commentary around that. That's the beginning of my tell process. I'm telling a story using these charts. I'm putting the commentary around it. That chart looks pretty good, but maybe a little bit lonely. So let's split the page and put another chart next to it. And when we show this to junior investment bankers, they are pretty excited at this point because that resize event, that would have to currently be done through Excel. You'd have to go all the way back to Excel, find the chart, resize it, and so forth. This works just fine. I can just do that resize event automatically. Let's throw the return on assets chart in next to it here. That looks good. Now let me make a couple of quick changes to that return on assets chart. At the moment, pretty much any change you make to a chart in Excel takes about 20 minutes. So as I'm going through this, and let's say I'm just going to want to flip the chart around, that's 20 minutes worth of work there. Let me move that bar in line. That's another 20 minutes worth of work. Let me take that line out. That's another 20 minutes worth of work. So that's roughly an hour's worth of work I just did there, and that's formed up my chart to look similar. Okay, pretty good. Let me make one more change here. Let's see if we can include ConocoPhillips as a comparable. Chevron compared to these other companies. Maybe one other company I might want to compare to is ConocoPhillips. I'll go into the comparables list here and just quickly look up ConocoPhillips and throw that in there. And that's got a kind of weird and long name, so let me just quickly rename that to just be Conoco. So I can obviously control anything that appears in the chart is something that I can control directly. I always get the charts exactly the way that I want them. So what's happened there is you can see that Conoco has popped into both of those charts. That's a huge time saver as well, but perhaps more importantly, if I go back to the total deck, you can see the flash reload there. All of the charts across the entire deck have been updated to include that comparable. So that's a good couple of hours work now at this point that we've just saved the junior banker. And more importantly, not only are we saving time for the junior banker, we're being more responsive to the senior banker.
Yeah, for most of our clients, we're really starting with bulge brackets and also middle market firms. So we really just leverage their enterprise data agreements. So for JP Morgan, it's a completely different scenario to Morgan Stanley.
In consulting world, you do the same thing, same painful process that people go through. So I'm curious, how much, are you specific? One question is, are you specifically targeting this to pitch book creation? Are you thinking of it as a horizontal platform? Because I see this more as a horizontal platform with a vertical, scenario that you're targeting.
Yeah, so actually a great question. So the way that we actually think about the software, you sort of helped me out here, is we actually think about the software, as you mentioned, as a platform. So we've got the platform. We're now going after our first vertical, which is investment banking. So now what actually happens is the clients are purchasing the platform plus a series of toolkits which we build. Then secondarily, clients can actually also build their own toolkits on top of this, so they've now got their own proprietary analytics on this. Furthermore, you can actually go one level up here, which is external third parties can also build toolkits within the platform. So whilst we're starting off in investment banking, that's where we have the largest domain experience within the firm. over time we actually move into a series of other markets, some of which are, pretty tangential. Asset management, private wealth, wealth management, etc. Lots of banks are across that spectrum, but thereafter management consulting is most definitely something that we're very interested in.
So let me just switch back here, and we were just talking about documents sharing. So here I've got the deck, and of course we'll be looking into other forms of document sharing, but just within Pellucid, I've got a company screen here. So this has just got all the companies, all the pitch books that I've been working on for this particular company, and I can share them with other users in the system. And then I can back up here to the dashboard. This is just all the companies that I've been doing some work for. They're all listed out here. It lets me easily navigate to the company that I want to work on. But also got a little bit of market data at the front here, just calling my attention to some of my clients that might need my attention at the moment. So if something's going on with one of my clients, I can see that immediately. And importantly, because I've got the power of Pellucid right there, I can immediately run through that review, select, tweak, and tell model. I can be the first investment banker calling my client in their hour of need, saying, I've got some materials I want to discuss with you, I've got some ideas about what's going on, and that can help me earn that trusted advisor status.
So I think, sort of all we really wanted to finish off with is most definitely starting with investment banking. Where we're at the moment is we've got a contract with one bulge bracket firm for a global rollout. We're in discussions with 3 other bulge brackets, and then also have a couple of middle market firms on the line. So we're expecting that sort of user base will be around about 10 to 15,000 by the end of next year.
What's the upfront effort to roll it out?
From the client's perspective,
Yes.
or from our perspective?
Well, the time-wise. So you're saying 2 to 3 months. Is there an implementation?
So there's, depending which deployment option you're actually after. So there's 3 different deployment options. So obviously in this arena, security is critical. Different firms have different requirements around that. So there is something behind the firewall. As you'd expect, the deployment timeline there is actually quite a bit longer than a private cloud or public cloud solution. In terms of actually sitting down with the bankers, there's most definitely an onboarding experience. So what actually happens with most of the major firms will be an industry group by industry group will actually be taken on. And that really gets to some of the points that Jamie was talking about before, that each different banker has a different taxonomy around their calculations and such forth. So you're really going through that entire process to set up, a solid foundation such you can get some machine learning in.
Is it ultimately put into a PDF, or is it presented? Is it printed from your system? Is it? I'll answer 3 different ways. You could ultimately present from an iPad if you so chose. Only about 5% of our target audience is ready for that. So that's not actually a principal audience. That is generally being slowed down through the combination of the banker's preference, but also legal and compliance not getting comfortable with that at this point in time. You can print it either to a PDF or alternatively to PowerPoint. And I would say if we didn't need to export it to PowerPoint, we would have probably been here about a year ago talking to you, because playing with PowerPoint is not that much fun. It's a per seat pricing model. Changes quite significantly with the different size firms.
And does your product come with the market data included, or you're leveraging the market data contract?
So that'll depend which firm it is. So as a general statement, we leverage the market data contracts that they've already got, assuming that they're in a structure that can be leveraged. With firms who don't have enterprise data agreements, which actually kicks in pretty early. Firms are around about 1,000 headcount, don't generally have enterprise data agreements. So in that instance, we'll actually become a redistributor of the selected data sources. But I think critically, this is a content generation engine, so you need to actually have the data to really get the full value out of it.
So what is your sales process? I mean, who's the ultimate decision maker, and are you selling to the junior bankers, the senior bankers, and ultimately?
So the system is actually, interestingly, initially designed for the senior banker. The whole process works so much more efficiently if it's sold to everyone in the organization. So that's really where you get the collaborative elements out of it. So if you just use it as a junior banker tool, you'll get some decent efficiencies, but where you really move the ROI is once you actually have the full team. So in terms of who you actually sell it to, you're generally having to do this on an enterprise basis. So you're actually normally getting approval from the COO or CAO of a bank.
Great. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much.